Hey everyone, Anarch here, and today I'm going to be telling you about the FBI coming to visit my door just a couple weeks ago. If that sounds interesting, you should stick around, because that's what this video is going to be about. So, on the morning of the 15th, I wake up to knocks at my door, and I go bleary-eyed to the door, and I open it up, and there are standing two stereotypically FBI-looking guys who introduced themselves to me as Bill and Steve. And you know, it's funny, ever since I got into organizing, there's always been this joke where people are like, you know, what's the name of your FBI handler? Mine's Todd or Andrew or whatever it was. And I guess now I know the answer to that question for myself. The name of my FBI handlers, plural, are Bill and Steve. And, the first thing I said, this isn't really a good time. I'm sleeping, and I'm really just trying to get them to go away, trying to get them to understand I really don't want to talk with them. But they say, okay, that's fine. We'll just give you like 10 minutes, go in there and just, get ready and come back out here and talk with us. Well, I'll just tell you before the story begins, don't do what I did in this story, and that is to say, don't talk with law enforcement. Whether you are guilty or innocent, it doesn't matter. You should never talk with law enforcement unless you have a lawyer present. However, I was just curious to know why they were even there to begin with. So I go inside and I call a friend of mine. I tell them the FBI is at my door. And this was mostly just for my own safety, but also they have contact with all kinds of community defense groups here in Tulsa, so I was just being prepared. Then I deleted all of my Signal chats, as you should if you are in a similar situation. If you ever think that the police might conceivably get their hands on your phone, you should delete your Signal chats, even if there is nothing incriminating in there, just because it leads them to other organizers and activists. Anyway, after that, I go and I caffeinate and I get ready, and I then go back outside and I talk to them on the porch. So the first thing they ask me is, Daniel, are you planning on hurting anybody? And I said, no, I don't think I'm a harm to anyone. And they said, do you know somebody that's planning on hurting somebody? And I said, no. And I was pretty confused at this point because I have no idea what that could be related to. I'm thinking like, did somebody just make something up about me and like tell the FBI that I'm like going to do something crazy, or that I know somebody that is? I have no idea what this was. This was probably just them probing to see if I would give them information, I suppose, that they didn't have beforehand. I have no idea. But then they immediately move on to the reason they're actually there. And they said, well, we got word you made some messages online and they were kind of worrying to us. Do you think people should be hurting police officers? Or, we saw another one about trying to tell people they should de-arrest people who have been arrested. And I know immediately what messages they're talking about. The first one is a tweet I made, the tweet that was taking place during the LA uprising, where I was essentially speculating that if people expanded the methods that were being seen there, that there was just really no way that law enforcement could deal with that scale of escalation. And the second one, that one was a little more unusual because that one did not blow up. That was not a big tweet. So that was pretty odd that they were even talking about that one. I was a little bit confused by that. But the first thing I say is, I don't think anything I've said rises to the level of incitement. And then they said, we just saw those messages and we were a little bit concerned. Sometimes something comes across our desk and it's black or it's white. It either is against the law or it isn't against the law. But then there are those occasions where it's kind of gray and we want to go talk to those people. So that's why we're here today. And I said, well, I think what happened was that a bunch of right-wingers got angry at me on the internet and spammed at FBI in my mentions until they got the attention of the FBI. And in doing so, they essentially are just using the FBI to come here and intimidate me. And immediately they were like, reacted to that. They were like, no, we're not here to intimidate you. We just want to talk with you. And I said, well, I think that randos on Twitter are essentially weaponizing the FBI. That's what I think. And they said, well, just so you know, we're not looking at social media posts in order to determine who we're going to come down and talk to. So after a little bit of probing, they tell me that they didn't see the @FBI on Twitter. Instead, some private individual called into their field office with my name and what I look like and all this personal information about me, as well as all of these tweets that I've made, which are apparently, very, very dangerous tweets. And I tell them that it's sort of ridiculous that they're doing this sort of task and that they're here speaking with me. And what they say is basically like, oh, well, we got to, when something comes across our desk, we have to go talk with the person just to be sure. We don't want to be in this situation where somebody does something dangerous and we would have to tell them that we didn't even try. And I'm like, all right, well, is that it? And they say, yeah, okay, well, I guess that's it for today. We got another person to go talk to, talking about how they're going to go kill Jewish people. It's really scary stuff about killing Jewish people. And I don't really say anything about that, but they leave, or rather, I ask for their full names and all of that, and they give them to me, and they leave. Nothing really happens afterwards. I continue with my week. Everything's normal. And then this last Saturday, I am coming back from a work day with Cooperation Tulsa. And we go to my apartment and then we leave to go get food. And while we're leaving, I see Bill and Steve in a black SUV with sunglasses on, driving toward my apartment. And they both immediately look over to me in the car. They've recognized that it's me, which indicates to me that they're there to see me. It's a little bit disturbing because I have to ask myself, how much have they been at my apartment in the meantime? Have they just been sitting outside? Are they, surveilling me? Are they using listening devices? I have no idea. I really don't know what to think about that whole affair. But I just keep on driving, and I don't get a phone call. I don't get a knock on my door. I don't see Bill and Steve again. Really, that brings me to the reason I'm actually even making this video. I guess there's a few reasons, so I'll lay out the reasons why I wanted to make this video. Number one, I wanted to demonstrate to people that this is what FBI resources are being used on, right? We all know that there's all kinds of, white supremacist militias out there. We know there are mass shooters. There's all these terrible things happening. And this is the direction that the FBI is going in the current day. The second reason why I'm making this video is because I want to make very, very, very clear that if something happens to me, I would never, ever harm myself. I've been through a lot of really terrible things in my life that I would never really talk about on the channel. And I have never once considered killing myself. That is something that is never on the table for me. If something happens to me, now you know what happened beforehand. I know that might sound a little bit paranoid, but I just want to make very, very clear. And the third reason I made this video was just to remind people never to speak to the police without a lawyer. In my case, it looks like it turned out okay. And the future will tell. Maybe they'll trump up some kind of thing to arrest me for. But it doesn't sound like they've got something yet. If they did, I don't think they would have come to my door to talk with me. They would have come to my door with a warrant. And given that they do not have a warrant, they're probably just surveilling me. They are probably looking for some kind of incriminating evidence. They're trying to figure out what my daily habits are. And if that fails, they'll probably move to someone else. However, my occasion isn't necessarily going to be your occasion. Never speak with the police unless a lawyer is present. You don't have to be rude to them because that might just piss them off, and who knows what they'll do when they're angry. Just indicate to them you don't feel safe speaking to them without a lawyer, that you know your rights, and ask for them to give you time to contact a lawyer. And then after they leave, contact a lawyer, and then you can have the lawyer contact the police. But don't do what I did. You know, it occurs to me that these are the United States government's current priorities. People who are anti-state, that is to say anarchists, revolutionaries most likely, and people who are anti-Zionist. You know, I can't really take for granted that this person they said they were going to go speak to was actually an anti-Semite. In the modern day, we've had to get used to them calling anti-Zionism anti-Semitism broadly. And yeah, with that in mind, there's really no guarantee that that person was actually anti-Semitic and was actually saying anything that was inciting about killing Jewish people. We really can't know that. It's also not impossible, obviously. There's an enormous rise in anti-Semitism lately. But given our current conditions, it seems just as likely that that person was just being anti-Zionist. And that is where our government's current priorities are at. It's trying to locate and suppress anarchists, and it is trying to locate and suppress anti-Zionists and principled pro-Palestinian voices, which is, of course, reasonable if you're the state. If you're the state, these are two big threats to you. You know, anarchists are the most devoted anti-statists, and those who are anti-Zionist are currently threatening the U.S.'s global geopolitical hegemony. And they want both of these voices to be suppressed, to be intimidated. And I suspect that that is really what these front door talks are about. They're about intimidation. They're about suppression. They're about getting people like me who are making videos, who are public voices, trying to get me not to make a video just like this one. And in that sense, I just want to be clear that it's not going to have any effect on what kind of videos I make or what sorts of choices that I make in my community. I am committed until the bitter end to do what is necessary as a revolutionary to liberate humanity from hierarchical power structures, whether they are domestic or abroad. And I suggest that all of you do the same. Take this video as an indication that if you're an anarchist or an anti-Zionist, you're on the right track. You are the enemy of a global hegemon. You're doing the right thing. Keep it up. I think that is the video for today. Also, if you want to support the work that I'm doing on this channel, if you want to donate to my possible legal defense fund, I suppose, or if you just want to help me feed the cats, you should go over to my Patreon and become a patron for any amount, $2, $7, $10, $12, $20. It's up to you. Also, you'll get access to the Anarch Discord, which is a wonderful community. It is probably the most healthy leftist space I've ever been in. And if you want to do that, all you have to do is just enter your Discord information onto Patreon, and that will give you access. That's all it takes. Anyway, that's about it. Thanks for watching the whole video. If you're here at the very end, I'll see y'all next time.